Give that a shot.
Yeah.
Consider it a little bit of a Lent.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I read some of the stuff. Like some of my friends are doing it time period.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Other people were saying like, oh, beautiful. I heard a quote from like Mother Teresa or something from one person like, "Be love." I said, oh, really good. Really good. It's got good. Oh man, you can show mercy. I'm still catching up those 3 days. I'm on top. You know, I think C.S. Lewis, you know, kind of saying like a lot of things that modern contemporaries say.
Which things in CFU?
I've been reading when C.S. Lewis says like everyone is of their own age, and it talks about at the very end like putting two minds, like you know, you can put two intellectual minds together, but that's not what makes them special. What makes them special is the different path of travel, like or going through a lot of change. Because we can learn a lot reading more about what you're saying. From C.S. Lewis.
Did you learn any old books?
Old books.
Old books.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And new ones too. But here's the fallacy that catches us all. We have this notion that everybody has been relatively stupid until now we're finally. But you know all that is. That's actually just like nationalist bigotry or racial bigotry. It's just time.
I think Greg Shire puts it well. He said about character, like he said like anything goes. American character. I remember I was like basically I think everyone was just saying different like what's good and what's wrong. Basically like oh you eat that, don't listen to this stuff, you can have whatever you like, you whatever like other than harm. Rape, murder, kill, whatever. Sure. It's interesting.
And that's an interesting question too.
What kind of character do you have?
Well, what kind of character do you need to insist that other people have?
Right, yeah. I never even thought of should you impose the character?
Yeah, should you? I mean, is that Jesus? Did Jesus go about imposing a certain character on people, or did he let people be free? I mean, do you see that Jesus was trying to force?
Well, he's going like the golden rule and beyond.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the golden rule would say, you don't want to, unless it's the you that's looking back at something when you weren't able to meet your own needs. Like if you lose your mind, and people, they may love you, but they have to restrain you and get you help, get you a shot at something, relax you, and then take you where you don't hurt yourself. Like you wouldn't want to in your right mind. That restrains your freedom. So the question is, since I think almost everybody agrees with that, when we back up from that, how nuts do you have to be before someone you would actually think it's the right thing to do for strong people to come take care of you a little and curtail you? And then, how about if you're not nuts, you're just 4 years old? 4-year-olds will go and attack you. And, you know, they don't have sense, so they have to be physically restrained and they have attacking weird. How about 5? How about 11? How about 19?
Well, like, you know, Jesus came down to, like, you know, be
so where do you draw the line?
And so, like, I don't know, like, if Jesus had to come down knowing that, you know, we're not on his level, he's, like, all knowing, all powerful, and like, why did he scoot down to our level?
That's a great question.
You know, why did he just not obliterate us knowing we're unperfect?
Let's say, well, let's pray and we'll do that, because that's a great question. I want you to repeat it because I'm pretty sure. Let's pray and we'll launch right in. Father in heaven, that's where we'd like to be. Either after you come back or sooner than that. But one way or another, we would like to live forever without hurt and without hurting others. In Jesus' name. Would you repeat your question? Why did Jesus
come down to our level to understand us? He's all knowing, all powerful, and he put just in us beings and not birds.
Because we're, in a lot of ways, nuts.
Yeah, like pretty heinous, hostile, killing each other, controlled by dogs all the time. We're not praying without ceasing. I mean,
so why did Jesus bother to come here in such a strange manner? If you accept the story, and even if you haven't, or you just don't, or you've rejected the story, just enter the story for discussion as if we were talking about a movie that we saw and that we both went to see together. In a story, how does it make sense that Jesus came here to mess around? If we're talking about infinite perfection and all the power and existence in the universe, what happened to your seat, man?
That's what I'm saying.
Man, cool.
I'm so consistent.
Some days you just wake up to things change. It just some days it's just emblematic. In answer to your question, let me just do an imaginary scenario. Picture who you care about most in the whole world. You could move ahead in your mind and picture that you have a child, your own child, so that there isn't anybody you care about as much. I mean, when you have a child, honestly, for a time, for most people, if they had to choose whether they're going to be with their child or their mate, it would be a hard choice. They expect to bury their parents. They don't expect to bury their child. They expect there's a 50-50 chance that they'll bury their mate if they don't expect to bury their child. It's to hope for the future for some sort of having their influence keep going for what they stand for. And it's a part of themselves. It's a part of yourself when you put yourself in that scenario. And your child, though, is nuts. I know people who have a child that is schizophrenic and that does random hurtful things to self and others. So far, I'm sad to say, literally dozens of people that I've actually personally known that are, or have known that are in that situation, I've never seen any of them just look at the child, look at their son, look at their daughter, and say, okay, I'm done with you. They try to set boundaries and they try to do tough love and all that kind of thing because they find their efforts aren't getting them anywhere. But they just keep trying and trying and trying and trying. They go to where the kid is, whether it's on the street or it's in some institution or in the prison or whatever. And they just won't ever, as long as they live, give up on this person. They love them so much. Even if the person is in prison for trying to kill them. You all probably have heard of It Is Written, the TV program, the Adventist TV program. I've lost track of who's the current speaker. It's come and gone a number of times in my life. I remember that it used to be, for many years, George Van, soft-spoken, dignified gentleman in the 60s. And people just loved him. I think that there was at least 1 million older Adventist women that had a secret crush on the guy. He was very handsome for an old man. He was very handsome, and he was so carried himself with such a dignity. And anything you ever saw in the guy was all about this quiet dignity. And then, in the newspaper, and on the radio and stuff, and in the gossip lines, this is before Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter and all that, we find that in the garage at his house in Ballard Oaks, his son did him with a screwdriver several times in the back and in the chest. And the son had mental illness. He didn't. It's hard to say, what of the son was still the son, but at that moment, I think he was expressing some sort of, part of him was expressing some sort of aggression and hatred towards his father. But I couldn't picture Elder Bannon saying, "Oh, I just hate my son. We need to give him the electric chair. Let's just take him to the vet." There's none of that. Jesus tried to explain to people the way that God looked at them and wanted to deal with them, and in fact was dealing with them and will deal with them, because people had all kinds of ideas about what God thought of people. And it was really mostly the religious people that had these ideas, because a lot of people just weren't stressing on it. It wasn't a factor as much. But especially the religious people where Jesus went to church and in his community really considered that when they did things that violated God's law, they hurt each other, they got themselves boogered up every time they made some idiot decision, they picked stupidly when they had choices. Jesus said, so you imagine that God just wants to wipe you out, and it's like doing a hard reset on your computer and forget the files. Do you want to save this file? And when you try to shut your computer down and restart it, and then Word reminds you that you had 27 documents open, and you're so sick of it, you just go, just get rid of that document, or you just do a hard reset so the documents are gone. You don't even care. And he said, you all know that you wouldn't throw away your own kid because of the way you love your kid. He said, if your son asks you for something, you're not going to give him something bad for him, are you? What is it? Ask for bread, you're not going to give him a scorpion, Here, have a bite. And it's a scorpion. You would never think of doing like that, even though your kids they get in your stuff. You don't think you're ever going to have any tools, and you're going to also have kids, and those tools are going to be like the whole socket set or the whole wrench set is going to stay intact. You're wrong. You get to be my age, and you'll go, even years after your kids are grown and gone, you go look and you go, oh, that's right, I don't have that size socket. But he said, why is it you think that us, and we're goofy, we love selfishly even at our best. Why do we think that we can love our own children better than God loves, and more deeply, and more thoroughly, and more patiently than God loves? It's ridiculous. It's comparing almost nothing to infinity in terms of love and compassion and affection and fondness. So you look at your kid with warmth and fondness. Even on their worst day, you're still just soft-hearted and you're calm. You're not just tolerant. You love them in their essence, regardless of their behaviors. And then God, infinitely. That was Jesus' message. It's part of what we call the gospel.
Kind of relates to that. There's some people that say that the first time they have a child is the first time they slightly understand the essence of God's love.
Good point. You know, those boring sections in the Bible that are like ancestry.com.ot, Old Testament. You know those. And so-and-so begat so-and-so who begat so-and-so and had 3, and then lived 70 years, and then begat so-and-so and begat so-and-so, and you're going to skip it.
Yes.
There's actually a few things there that are like, it's like going to a diamond mine, you know. One of those is that it says it's in the begat's that Enoch's story. It says he had a son, and then he walked with God for a certain number of years, and was taken. He wasn't because God had taken him. His intimacy, his spiritual awakening, it almost seems that it says he had a son, then he walked with God this many years. It could be a cause, and it could be part of this. Could parenting be a spiritual discipline? Could it be that parenting is a spiritual practice? Well, here's a shocker. If you're a saint, and that doesn't mean somebody that's been beatified by a church entity, like in the Catholic Church. It doesn't take that. When we just decide we want to do this thing with Jesus, we're the saints. We are the saints. It just means saint is just the sanctified, the set apart, the special. We become special at living. For the saints, everything, no matter how common that we do, every aspect of our lives, becomes a sacrament. Whether it's washing the dishes, driving, parenting, dating, studying, doing math, taking care of your dog, taking in the news, helping a friend, shopping at Safeway, going to the doctor, walking down Main Street in San Luis, going to church. Honestly, that's one of the hardest things for me to do and imagine being spiritual is going to church. It's harder for me to be with people when I'm watching them make a claim and then comparing what I see after the claim is made than to be with people that did no claim. It's like, what are you comparing me to? I didn't make any promises here. I said I'm this way, and then I proved it. You know, the coherence chased me less. But like you said, it is said that some people say they didn't really understand in the same way love of God, the gospel, Christianity, spirituality, love, until they have their first child. Excellent.
Are you saying everything is everything? Because everything is everything. Everything can be nothing. So where do we get really precise in our argument and know what you're saying?
Don't go too far. I agree with both of your first two statements. And that's a healthy spiritual perspective. You said, are you saying that everything is everything? Because if it's so, then you're saying that everything is nothing. But then you moved on, but that obviously is absurd, so it couldn't be true. So what about, let's just say, I agree with the first two statements. There's no need to go further. Mind that, dig down deep into that. If everything is nothing, and I think A few years of studying physics ought to convince you that everything is nothing. That at the beginning and end of the day, at the bottom line, if you take anything that you think is a thing, anything that you find that seems somehow like the real world, certainly as opposed to the spiritual world, the real world, matter, stuff you can study with science, not this woo-woo stuff of spirituality. You take this real stuff, you know. And you say, well, okay, if it's real, then what's it made out of? It must be made out of smaller pieces of real. But if you honestly take the smallest little pieces you can get your hands on, and then you keep making them smaller and smaller and smaller, you recognize that the smallest piece you can cut things into, and by the way, there is a smallest piece. You can't just keep cutting into it. We know this. For a fact. You get to a certain size of subatomic particle, and that is as small as it gets. Because if you reduce it further, you don't get two pieces of matter half that size. What you get, if you take the smallest allowed existing piece and break it apart to try to say, what's that made of? You realize that matter isn't made of matter. It's made of energy. And you try to sit on some energy sometime. Try it. It has no form. So everything that has form, shape and mass and all that, is made up of stuff that doesn't. Stuff is made up of what stuff does. Wrap your mind around that, because energy is what stuff does, or what gets done to stuff. Energy is far more similar to a verb than to some sort of solid common noun. It's as if you could take a noun and cut it into small enough pieces and realize that all nouns are just made of verbs, which is absurd. What it means is, when you look at something and you say, now that's real, you know that that thing that is real is made up of stuff that you can't get a hold of, that isn't solid, that isn't pieces of stuff. So you said, is everything everything? Because if so, everything is nothing. Everything is nothing. Everything is nothing. When we place our values on what we think is so real and solid, we will, if we live long enough, we will come to some recognition that what Jesus said is so down the line. So you're gathering up stuff you value, your treasure, on this earth. You get your fancy clothes, you get your fancy house, you get all your stuff and put it in the closet, and you get your money and put it in the stock market, or you put it in cash or gold or whatever. It seems, now I'm going to judge you by me. Most of you are somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 21 years old. Somewhere in there. I remember being 20 or 21 years old. I had not yet had enough years go by that I'd been getting stuff to have the stuff that I got go bad. And hadn't come to the point where I realized you get everything just like you like it, and then it falls apart. It falls apart. You save a big retirement, and it's going to get raided. You're going to lose it. It's gone. Somebody will get at that pension plan, or they'll invest it in the market so they can take the interest and enjoy it, and then they lose it, and it's like, dang, we did the best we could to save your retirement, and I'm sorry, but you don't have one. That happens to millions of people. Jesus said, if you store up stuff here. Thieves will get it, or it'll rust, or a moth will come and lay its eggs in the larvae will die on stuff in your closet, or in fancy linens or whatever. That is so true. Buy it ahead and see what happens to it. I thought I was getting a real deal when I found some coupons and I bought boxes of toilet paper because it seemed like it's so expensive. I said, I noticed that inflation was more than the interest rate on my savings account. So I bought stuff like paper towels and toilet paper in advance, like for a couple of years, put it in the attic. And then I went up there and I realized that had been appreciated by the rats. Now, if rats had been, the little tubes, the way they line up, is really like those little play sets you get at Petco for the rats. I'd throw it all out. I thought I house wanted it. I was just sort of starting to learn. There is nothing that you can count on. There's nothing. There's nothing that's sort of the world that you can trust. Nothing. You have to learn that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Joy doesn't care what's going on around it. What is happening in your life cannot rob you of joy. It can rob you of pleasure and comfort and fun, but it cannot rob you of joy. I have lost track years ago of how many people have told me with a straight look on their face, they're not being facetious and they're not kidding, and they're not trying to just lead me on. They have nothing to gain by lying to me. When they found out that they were going to die in a few months, and still had little kids, even though it's just horrible tragedies. When they found out that they had cancer, AIDS. One time it was a guy who had AIDS. I was youth pastoring at the PUC church, and I took a group of prep students down to help out with some landscape and indoor chores for a guy who just lived right off the Silverado Trail, not very far from the Flashing Red Light, actually. He had AIDS, and it was, he'd been sort of at end stage and then sort of back, but his skin was like cracked everywhere, and he was like gray and had yellow eyes, and he was not in a good way. I took this group of academy students down there to help this guy, and they did help him. We spent 4 or 5 hours and did one of those work things. Like, it's a really good thing to do. But I think he helped them far more, and he had trouble. He would get winded if he got up off the couch. They kind of helped him to sit in a chair so he could be sitting in the shade and at least have company while they were working in his front yard. Because I think the neighbors were complaining he got ridiculous and overgrown, so they were rescuing him and his partner a little bit there. But he sat there in the living room at the end of the time we were with him, telling his students, and I saw them going, how did that be? He said, the best thing that ever happened to me, the source of the greatest joy in my whole life, is that I got AIDS and found out I was going to die soon. And by the way, this was 20 some odd years ago. We didn't have the antiviral cocktails. It wasn't a chronic condition then. It was a death sentence, and it was a rapid death sentence. You got it, you were gone. And he said, I have never in all of my life experienced joy like I have since I got sick. And he didn't explain it. He didn't say how that mechanism goes. He didn't suggest, so I recommend you go out and try to get AIDS so you can have joy. This seems to me like a shoddy strategy. What if he gambled wrong and he was just kidding? You know?
So, what did he mean by, like, I've never experienced joy till now? Is it like, he experienced joy because he going to heaven, or he experienced joy as in he knows he's gonna die and all these people are, helping him or being surrounding him or things like that? Like,
see, that's what he didn't tell us.
oh, it's just left wondering.
Yeah. This is sound of one hand clap.
I've heard that like when people have sickness like that, they've said that they experience life in a different way, and it's hard for them to relate to other people that hasn't experienced a sickness like that, And they also get kind of like annoyed that like at other people that are just wasting their life, Like they're like,
Say that again?
They get annoyed at other people that kind of waste their life.
That waste their life.
Yeah.
That waste their life.
Yeah.
That waste their life. People that are dying say that until they found out they were definitely, like, right away dying, they had before never started living.
I'm not an ethic. I'm saying like, to go is on before now to die. I believe when I say this, that we have to be in the present moment all the time. And I'm guessing the sickness guy experienced being in the present, but you just said everything is nothing, and that, I thought, true enough, I'm go from my last lecture all the time. And, maybe we have rest and sleep. That's the only time we put our mind down like an instrument to rest. But, our mind is always constantly going once we're awake. So what is the purpose then to live?
Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, this is in the King James Version, and you've likely heard it this way, but I'm going to actually improve the Hebrew translation a little bit. Solomon said, I've looked at it from so many angles. I've tried the thing where I pursued every which way to have pleasure. Do you ever look at like the count of, people, people are critical today of people who would have their way with people in beauty contests. No parallels to current events. But this is a man who there was a beauty contest, there would be a Miss Universe contest to select each of his just under 1,000 women that were literally at his disposal, that he treated as play property, playthings, toys. How it is that a man did that and then wrote what we have come to value as part of the Bible. Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Proverbs. He said, look, I went that route. I had gold that needed a front loader to move around. I built the biggest, fanciest buildings. I brought world leaders together and bragged about the glories of my kingdom when they came to visit me. I did not tell them about the glories of the God of Israel. I told them about the glories of my accomplishments when royalty came to see me. I built big monuments, put my name on them. And you stop drawing parallels. This is not a morning after pill. And that was unintentional, the way that came out. Take it if you want it. He said, I did all that. Not only that, I have been, by supernatural means, the wisest person in the world. And in what he said, you can tell that he had reasoned to the point of the pre-Socratics and the Socratics and the Upanishads and the Vedas. And I believe it is true that Solomon had the most powerful mind alive. Because he said, I did all of this. Political power was the king. Commanded the army, had my finger on the button. I had admiration from everywhere. And here's what I found. In the King James it says, man, it was all vanity. It was all just vanity. Vanity, vanity. Some of the modern translations say, instead, I think this is what the NIV says, I could be wrong about that part. Smoke. This is all just smoke. Just a vapor. In the Hebrew, though, the word that has been translated vanity and has been translated smoke and vapor, it's from their word for soap bubbles. Soap bubbles. Think about soap bubbles. Remember soap bubbles when you were a little kid in the bath? Remember blowing bubbles?
They're fun while they last, but they don't last very long.
They're fun while they last, but they don't last very long at all. And they're beautiful. And they've got a whole light show. They've got a whole LSD trip on their surface. It's psychedelic. It really is. It blows your mind if you consider them, but you have to consider them fast because they're gone. They're gone.
Back to kind of what Clay was talking about, like appreciating life more. I think we only live our life with gratitude, and we focus on the good in life instead of the bad.
Gratitude.
And I think that could be another like finger instead of the 3 fingers.
Beautiful. And those 3, those are just to prime the pump. Those are the hors d'oeuvres. Now, they're just the samples that the people hand out at the market to convince you to get some product.
But like, what's the purpose of living though? Like, you know, mine is in USD.
In other words, what are you for?
You know,
what are you for?
What are you for?
What are you for? I think that it's a spiritual accomplishment to become a human being instead of a human doing. If you can't get to where you understand that you're a human being and not a human doing, then how is it that when you're regarding others like you regard yourself, you can look at them as a being instead of a doing? As an embodied miracle instead of a toy or a tool or just another admirer. Gratitude. As a spiritual practice, as a spiritual discipline, gratitude. What if you don't have anything to be grateful for? What if your life is crap? Or some people's lives are really kind of cool. Really, some people's lives are really kind of cool. And other people's lives look like crap. Do they? Some people are born without their limbs and without eyes or without a nose. Or they're born without the ability to move their legs, or they have, when they're a child, they're not even behind the wheel. Their parents are. Somebody T-bones them and crushes them so that they can't hardly move anything but their hands a little bit. How do they practice gratitude? What if you're a little kid and you're dying of AIDS? How do you then practice gratitude?
You can still find gratitude in the worst situations. Like that guy found gratitude, even though he had AIDS. You know?
Even though he said it was because, I think. He was grateful for AIDS.
Yeah.
It was the big presence thing, the biggest thing, and he was grateful for it. Is that just a matter of Pollyanna stuff, of just being pitiful and saying, I'm so glad I poked my eye out. Thank you, Jesus, for that hole in my eye. What is it really to practice gratitude?
Sorry, that's the underground. Was he a Christian before? Did he Christian do that during his?
I don't think he was a Christian then. I don't think he'd ever been. It seemed from his talk that he was not, that wasn't his culture and it wasn't his profession.
I think sometimes we think about the healing physically, but when they heal spiritually, I think it means more. Even in a situation, they feel grateful that they will heal spiritually. We don't want to go there, but
Sometimes people say that.
So, are you saying we're a bunch of brilliantness to be nothing?
Yeah, I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
I feel like it has to do a lot with like your attitude on how you had seen your life, either before or after, even just growing up. Because I know this kid, he was like a basketball star. He signed with a D1 school. He got hit by a drunk driver and was paralyzed for the rest of his life. And so he had seen a counselor every single day, and he'd always have a smile on his face. And she would some days come in like super tired, and she'd be like, "Why are you always happy?" And he's like, "Honestly, I'm happy where I am because of how I got here today and all the opportunities that he's had." So I feel like it's honestly just your mentality, sometimes your attitude.
How do you do it?
I don't know. He was just so happy all the time, and
Let's talk about happy.
she used that.
Make me come back to happy, okay?
I know that there was the guy with AIDS in it. He got grateful for the AIDS, but he's grateful that the AIDS was able to open his eyes to what really matters in life.
Good point. Does it require AIDS or cancer or quadriplegia? It doesn't. Because there's people that start living like that. Jesus made a big deal about how hard it was for the rich. Didn't he? Well, here's the interesting thing about being rich. You could choose not to be. He suggested to the young rich guy that came to him in Mark 10 that he choose not to be. You have the power to do that. If you're poor, do you have the power to choose not to be poor? I was poor. It might not be immediate. Happy. Now this is gonna be a shocking thing, okay? Don't worry, I'm gonna redefine terms so that it's less shocking, but it has some shock on it. Happiness has nothing to do with it. Happiness is at least half genetic. Happiness is a state that we have that involves a combination of neurotransmitters in our brain. Like, related to pleasure, but it's sort of a baseline. It's sort of where is your set point?
I had a friend tell me once, after he had told his testimony, that really stuck me, and it was about happiness. And he was like, it's not happiness that I look for, but peace. And I think that resonated with me because I think too often we try to chase happiness.
You do.
And unfortunately, in this world, I don't think that we'll truly experience like lasting happiness until
Yes, with one caveat. You can have heaven here. You can start now. And yes, if you pursue happiness, you're the least likely to get it. You're going to have it, but it's by pursuing something else that you have it. And it's only the set point that's inherited genetically. And the circumstances that you're in do contribute to your happiness. Not your joy, but your happiness. But a third of it, and this is statistical, so it doesn't apply to a person because you could probably defy any statistic, is choice. You can find ways to make things fun, to make things a fun game for yourself in any circumstance. People have done it in concentration camps, when they're being tortured routinely, when they've been mutilated physically. They found a way to actually enjoy their life. To enjoy it. Is that twisted? No. When they come out of those situations and experience anything, some relenting of that nonsense treatment, then their joy just goes off the chart.
So if I'm understanding correctly, basically you're saying that like happiness is kind of a circumstantial thing, and then joy is more of a choice.
Happiness is sort of a circumstantial thing.
Like it's based.
And joy is a choice. It's not that simple, but you're in the right direction.
I mean, that's kind of how you're separating the two.
It's worth looking at that model, but you'd have to overlay a lot of models to get a depth to start resolving.
So my question is, so you kind of have to assume that there is choice.
There is
and
choice.
that choice isn't based on completely chemical processes and
correct
like experiences. Okay.
In fact, we can demonstrate that if you logically rely on your model, on physicality, brain wiring, structure, chemistry, endocrinology, you don't have any choice. Choice, if it exists, exists outside of that.
That's what I was wondering.
It's not local. Excellent question. Shoot. I totally was going to give you a quiz and I'm not now.
We take it home.
You want to take it home?
Yes. And when you give it to us, can you tell us like
But you know what? Here's the thing. You'll have to turn it in tomorrow, and tomorrow is your midterm.
Friday.
Yeah. It's tomorrow for us. It's tomorrow for us, right? No, you be here tomorrow. Thursday. I'm gonna put this in the bag, not in the trash. We'll put it on his desk and give him the first one. Okay? Pass that back to him. And then everyone, please just take one so we've got leftovers for when it's not here. Okay?
Yeah.
that. There's no precision, there's no category. I don't care. That's the radical basically not grateful and
You don't have to add.